Hi everyone, welcome to this video about my Draw This in Your Style challenge. So in this, on my Instagram, I had this challenge about creating this character, and that I asked everyone to send in their own version of the character. And I picked out a couple of random artworks to give a quick review. And before I start with the reviews, so doing online reviews is part of my Patreon. And if people want to support me, they can go over to my patreon.com/MitchLeeuwe. And there for $5 a month, you get a weekly lesson of 1 hour. And I also give their homework and video reviews. So I give a lesson. For this month, it was about drawing animals. And then I ask them to draw animals, and then I give a review to everyone who sent in the homework. And those reviews I do in video feedback. And you can also ask me their questions and more. You can check out my Patreon if you're interested in it and want to learn out more. And I also did this Draw This in Your Style challenge because I just released my new ebook with 2.5-hour video tutorial on my Gumroad. And it's an ebook of 100 pages, and you can find out more on my gumroad.com/MitchLeeuwe page. And there I have also other tutorial ebooks with videos. I also put those links in the description. So now head over to the Draw This in Your Style video feedback. So yeah, let's just start. I will start with the one from Pepijn Klaus. And let's turn this off and turn this on here. So Pepijn made this really cool version. And my first reaction is that's really cool that he did something. He made something of his own from it. And that's really great. That's also what I sometimes do when I don't have inspiration or ideas. I just look at some artwork that I really like, and I'm really going to change it and make something of my own from it. And let's see what he did. So he has this this bowl of witch soup. So like this here, and this goes down around. So what's important is that you think about the construction of these objects, that you think of it as a 3D object. At least that's my style. I really draw in this Disney style. So I use all these 3D objects, and I call this construction. So like I work with something like a sphere, a cylinder like this, and cubes. These are my main building blocks. And I'm also drawing through these shapes because that helps with drawing them correctly. So also here with this, I wouldn't put this in the middle. Yeah, I almost did it here, but it's a bit more on the side. So I maybe would put it more here, and then you can use it around the shape. So maybe if I would do this drawing again, I would do it a bit different. And maybe I also did this because there was a character standing in front of it. But if I was drawing this, I would put it more here. Most of the time I avoid the middle. I always go for the one side or the other side because I don't want symmetrical. And that means symmetrical is when both sides are the same. So I always try to have one side a bit different. So here, this eyeball here, and maybe putting eyeballs here. So oftentimes I work with groups of 3. So instead of one eyeball, I maybe would put a smaller and a medium and one big. And then I wouldn't put them all at the same distance, but I will make a group of 2 and a group of 1, and then that you have this triangle shape. And I'm also using a big shape, a small shape, and a medium shape. Because you want to have, it's again, that's symmetrical you want to avoid. So let's look. So he also used a bit of perspective. And I think that you do see you can look inside this jar, and you draw this letter like this. So it would also have a bit of perspective. Let's see if I can draw the perspective a bit correctly. So I think it's something like this then. So the horizon line, this line, will be a bit more here. I have some other tutorials about perspective that will help more. But if you draw this plank a bit here, you would see the top. You would see this character looking here. And I would maybe push his pose a bit more to really stretch out more. So let me see how I can, I don't like this sketch anymore, but I would make his pose, maybe making it a bit more stretched out. Maybe I would make an action line like this here. So he's holding this thing here with the stretched arm. And then this other arm is bent and is holding this stick. I would move this, I will give this stick a bit more angle because I like to avoid vertical and horizontal lines unless I have to. So here in this one is also slight angle, but this one is stretched. And this one is also, this arm also moves a bit like this. So you're thinking about guiding the eye also. So I really like that these eyes are looking at this object. So I'll also use the eyes to guide the eye. And then here, I also like this bend here in this cap that is pointing downwards. We want this to be the focus point. So here we can use this head also, so it also moves a bit like this here. And then this pose is also here. So like this here. And then you see a bit of the perspective. And I also like that you can use this perspective a bit to create this direction. And then maybe put this jar also not here, so it's on this line, but I would put it a bit down like this here. So because then you get this direction. Then instead of this, I hope this is clear, it is a bit more like this. So here, this one is a bit like this, and this is this. So this is more dynamic. And in my other tutorials, I go a bit more in depth about all these different subjects, but I want to just give as much feedback as I can. So I'm going really quickly over all these subjects to try and help a bit. So I would also think a bit about the perspective like this. But great work, Pijn. And maybe I would also really make this crow like this. So here this crow is really bending over like this. So that everything feels a bit more pushed. So that's, you want to push and exaggerate it more. And then it will get more, I really like the drawing, but I think if you push things and exaggerate things a bit more, it will create extra dynamic and movement in it. But great work, Pepijn. Everyone should check out his work. And also, I couldn't review everyone's work because then this video will go on really long. But check out on my Instagram the text to see everyone's awesome work. and go follow each other and comment to each other. We artists need to help each other out, right? So let's look at the Boras and Ilus. So let's put this here. And this is really a funny drawing. I really like what you did with that, with that you exaggerated what's coming out of the pot. I think for you, it's really important to work on your construction. What I mean with that, I already talked a bit about that with Pepijn, is using basic construction like this to create your characters. So what I was already telling is I use these cylinders, of the spheres, cylinders, and cubes to build my characters. And then I'm thinking in 3D, also with this head. So here, this head is going like this here. And then this. So think of how is the body constructed. And I think if you're going to start practicing that construction using these shapes, and you can check out some of my tutorials about drawing characters. I'm talking about this a lot because it's really important. I really like that you use the eyes to look at this this blob, and maybe we can let this blob look back, so you get this effect of so this works really well because that helps telling the story. So here we have this character, and I really like that it's this really big ball that makes also a bit different than mine version. I wouldn't put this in the middle because it helps if you're putting this handle here and maybe here this handle, you get more of this 3D effect. So you want to use this, right? Or if you're drawing a box, that you see both sides and that you're not drawing this, but you want this 3D effect, at least in the style I'm working in. So here, I think it's also, maybe she can put her arm a bit up here and that she's really trying her best to stretch to get in that thing. So try to think in 3D, and I really like that this is really big. And what I'm also always doing is using a big shape, a medium shape, and maybe a small shape, and then letting it all on top of it, and then using a big shape, medium shape, small shape. You don't always have to work with 3, but it can really help. And what's also really helping is if you're drawing this blob, that you're thinking of the construction like this here. And that if you're drawing then the eyes on top of it, that you follow this shape, this construction. So this mouth is also following this shape. I hope it's clear. So something like this. But great work, Deborah. I really like it. So let's go to Mandy. How are Mandy Howard art? I think that's it. So it's really funny, happy drawing. Almost sneezing. Yeah, almost. So let's look at Mandy Howard art. So I really like it as well. So great work. And I would suggest to put a bit perspective in it. I really like the character. So I guess this is a bit of the perspective. So this is the horizon line and this is the vanishing point. So this table, for my feeling, it will be a bit like this, maybe here. So this table will be here. So it's a 2-point perspective. See my perspective tutorials and videos for more about that. So I would make this lasagna here, a bit here, and then pulling this arm more. So, and that's really the most biggest tip I have for you, is that I think this drawing would really help if you use this perspective, and if you're going to start drawing in a bit more in 3D, maybe use letting this cat look this tongue out, that he's really hungry, maybe making this looking for pose, maybe this tail like this, so you get a bit of this direction, because you will always want to lead the eye to this point. Yeah, I think to this point. So here, so it's really cool that the stick is pointing to this lasagna bowl, and also the salt is aiming at this bowl. So this bowl is the focus point. And that's really important to think about if you're drawing. What is the story you want to tell? What is your story? And as artists, we're all storytellers. And with the drawing, you're always telling a story. And it can be super simple. Like the story of this is this witch is preparing a magical lasagna bowl. So you want to put the focus on this lasagna bowl. So, and for you, yeah, again, also perspective and construction to create more depth in your drawings. Thanks, Mandy. Awesome work. And let's look at Pooh Society. So let's make this a bit bigger. And by the way, I'm working on Adobe Photoshop, but you can all do this in any program you would like. So let's start. What I would suggest is to also focus on construction. And maybe here, let this character look at this character. I'll make this brush a bit smaller. Then, so I'm using all these basic shapes to build my character. You can also study some old Mickey cartoons and just try to study them. And you're doing that by drawing these circles and these shapes, and trying to learn from it and see how it's all built. And what I'm doing is I'm drawing through these shapes to, it's a bit like you're drawing a stick figure or the skeleton of the characters. So it's here, so this back goes here. Maybe we can pull this arm a bit up, put this hand here. So this is a bit how I sketch and how I think. You can see I'm always posting really clear sketches because I think that gives a better image on how to build your characters. But my first sketches do look a bit like this. And again, here adding a bit perspective for this character here, and for this character maybe a bit here. And then putting the feet on the ground. So think of how the ground is. And maybe this is a bit too much, but I think the first lesson for you is to learn to draw your characters with these shapes. So here, this witch head, you can draw this with the shape and put this nose on top of it. Think of how it's constructed. How's this cheek going here? How's this eye on top of this head? And how's this eyebrow? How does the head goes on the head? So like this here. And it's all about construction and building your characters. Great work, Pooh. So let's go to the next one, Mr. Fire. And open this one here. And yeah, I really like this one. It's awesome work. And let's see what I can say about it. I really like that you're having this side here. So what you could maybe do, and I also didn't really do that, but I have a feeling there's this S shape here. So when I'm drawing a character or designing anything, I draw with 3 lines, C, S, I. So here, this is an S line, and then here is maybe a C line, and then here's a C line, but here's an I. And you can see here, there's this contrast between 2 lines. So often when I have an S line, I'm using a C line against it, or I'm using it like this, or I do this, and or I start with an I and add an C, or you can add the C here. But what I don't do is I don't do this, or I don't do this, or don't do this, because that is boring and parallel, because this doesn't look natural. It looks like it's human made, and this looks more organic. I think you did a really good job with the circle here. Maybe you can add a bit more shape to this thing here, a bit like this here, that you're adding a bit more shape here. Maybe you can use some overlap here so that these things are pointing out. So overlap is when you're, for example, you're putting here, if you have these 2 balls, you can see which ball is closer to us. But if you're doing this, then you see that this ball is closer to us. Maybe you can even make this ball then a bit smaller, so you get really this perspective feeling. So like this, and that's what we're calling overlap. And that's something you want to do with your drawing. And yeah, great work, Mr. Fire. What can I say more? I really like that this one is looking over the shoulder. There's some nice overlap. And also think of how's this hand going around this stick. So I push this hand more around it, so it goes more around. I think this hair is also pointing to this here. Maybe we can put the and also I didn't really do that, but maybe you can push this crow looking at this goo, and maybe he's scared or something, or anything, but maybe it can help if he's looking at it or something. I also didn't do that, but I think what works a bit in my drawing is that you have this line. It's going like this here, and this feels a bit too detached for something. Maybe it's a bit too far high, but I think you can help it by bending him over and let him look at the juice. So great work. And let's continue. Let's put this in a folder. And let's look at Bojo Comics. I really like that you're using this gas mask. There's some nice twist in it. So what I maybe would do is then maybe, so this character is using a gas mask and there are these fumes coming out. Maybe you can use these, so these deadly fumes or something. Maybe something like this. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to get to the platypus, and this platypus is maybe holding his beak. So something like this, because it smells so bad. Maybe you can find some other poses, but that it's closing his nose, or maybe there's this. I was thinking maybe you can keep this, or so he's holding his nose because it smells so bad. Maybe it looks a bit green or something. Maybe you can use his tail also to show that a bit. Tails are always great to show a bit of the emotion of the character. I really like this. Maybe if you're using these things, I would maybe make them a bit bigger here. So something like this. Maybe using this overlap here of these balls. You did it nicely here. So this feels 3D. Maybe you can use this here. Draw an extra handle here or something. And yeah, think about the style, because here you're using these parallel lines and these perfect lines. You can play around a bit more with that, maybe using a bit more different styles. And it can be just something like this or something to create a bit more interesting lines. Maybe something like this. So here, also here, this neck, maybe you can use some overlap or something. Thinking about, because this seems a bit flat about how the jacket goes, so maybe this would be fine. So this feels like this, maybe that can look a bit like it's overlapping. Maybe just go for simple roots like this. But watch out for these parallel lines. Maybe you can use a bit more, maybe using this C shape here. Then, I don't know, maybe you can use goggles or something. To create a bit more. I also like these dots. It's also, I really like this clear style, but maybe do something then like this. With this head. So also always draw through your shapes when sketching. So for example, with this head, if I was drawing this head, I was drawing through it. So you have these good circles, and think of how is this on top of that, how it's all constructed, and how is it all connected to each other. So think 3D. But great work, Bojo. I really like it. So let's go to Yet. Great. Awesome work. And let's see. So I think it's really great that you use this perspective. So that works really nice. Maybe you can make this bottle feels also a bit like this. So maybe you can put this bottle a bit more bent over, like this here. So, and then maybe using this overlap here over this bottle, something like this. Watch out for these points. So that's called tangents. So you don't want to do this, but you want to do something like go over this line or go under it. But don't do this, because that's distracted, and that's called an tangent. Watch out for your drawings that there are more of that. So it's also here. So I would make this then a bit like this more, so that you're avoiding these points coming too much together. Same here. So here this part is touching that there. So you could do this. So that would be nice if you're using some overlap is nice, but watch out for those tangents. And also here for this head as well. So think about the construction. So draw these construction lines and think of how it works in 3D and that's just something you can keep practicing and developing in. But the important thing is that you're aware of it, maybe practicing it. So using these construction shapes. Also, maybe this is too straightforward. So maybe you can use it also a bit more like this, so that you're looking more at, instead of this, that you're looking at it with this here. And you did that really great with this, for example. So you get also this direction. Maybe you can use these bones. I really like this bone here. It's pointing that direction. Maybe you can use this bone here. And maybe you can use another bone here or something. Or I'm feeling maybe you can just do 2, because this feels a bit too, there's space is the same. So maybe you can use 2 bones, maybe like this. And then the third one is like this or something. So that this feels a bit more organic. And there are some more places that you could use. Maybe you can use here one big and then small, medium. So trying to play around with a bit different sizes, big, small, medium, and so on. Great work, Rajat. The great. And let's continue. And let's look at the Kishari Fury. So I'll put this one here. And cool drawing, awesome work. One thing I would say is think about the construction, even when you're drawing this really front view. So think of the perspective. So here this perspective. It's maybe a 1 point perspective from this point. And then think of how it's on the ground here. So I really like how this is going around. So that's really great. And that the stick is here. And I really like that you have this direction, like this. Maybe you can play around a bit more with that. Maybe you can use this, give this crow maybe a bit more of an action pose. So maybe because this crow is scared, so maybe he has this action line that is more like this. So the crow is more, so it almost looks like the crow is doing this. So then the pose also looks more surprised or scared. So look at the expression here. So he's putting his whole body back. Maybe you can use this claws also. This opens. So this feels a bit more that he's scared. And then maybe make this creature also. So here you have this direction that this creature is going. So maybe this is really stretched because this creature is going really fast. And then he's jumping at this character. So maybe this adds a bit more speed to it. And what I have here, this looks a bit symmetrical, this place. So maybe you can use it a bit more like this or something. Maybe you can make this head a bit bigger so that it looks like it's really leaning forward. Or maybe you can use a bit of depth that's just really looking in the ball more, maybe a bit more like this. And its hand is also really big. And this, maybe this thing is also a bit bigger. So there's more like this. There's this contrast, this it feels this perspective is more pushed, so you get more depth. You want to work with contrast with big and smaller shapes. So maybe you can push that a bit more. So pushing, maybe you can first make a sketch and then try to make a sketch again where you push everything a bit more. But great work, Kisara. Let's look at the creature pit. And this is an awesome drawing to talk about exaggerating. I really like this. This is awesome. Great, great work. And maybe you can make, if you make something like, maybe try to push it a bit more. So maybe pushing this pose even more. So here that this feet is like this, and push this feet more. And I already think you did a great job. And then it's just trying out to maybe push it until you break it. And then maybe making this also this, here you want to have this force is going like this, and you already have that. So maybe adding this crow, following this force a bit more. And so like this, so it has this feeling. And also here this one, maybe you can let this feather go like this, and maybe a smaller feather. It doesn't have to be exactly this line, so it can also be this, but that's pointing. I also like this feather is pointing to this character. So maybe we can put the feather here, maybe here too. Maybe here we can have two feathers or something, or maybe it works better if it's coming from this style. I really like that. So here using this head, and yeah, this stick should point at that creature. So you want this, you're already doing that, so that's really great. And try to, maybe you can even make this more. I really like this overlap here in this finger. So you did awesome work with that, man. That's I really like that. Maybe you can even make this bigger. So what happens if we make this bigger, and that you can use this here, this overlap as well. Maybe making this more an arc like this. It feels a bit too. I think you can make this. It gets really big out of this. It gets bigger out of this thing. Maybe that's really cool. You want to exaggerate that, maybe. Maybe I'm going too far and is your drawing already working? But it's always good to try to push it more and more. Maybe you can also here, the original drawing feels maybe a bit here too horizontal. Maybe you can use this perspective a bit more. So if you're taking this character, we're putting this character maybe a bit more here. So a bit here. And that you're pushing this hand is going so like this, maybe so that you're thinking of maybe you can use this ball. I don't know, I'm just trying out things, right? So here this ball is falling this way. So this monster works like this. And here you can see this perspective working, this foreshortening, we're calling that. Then here we have this cylinder going like this. And then here we have this ball pointing at this here. So that you get these shapes. I hope it's a bit clear. But thinking in foreshortening really helps in using these perspective to create a bit more depth. I hope this clear. Your drawing is really great. It's really hard to give feedback on it because it's already great. But I think it can help a bit perspective, can really make it more immersive. if that's something you want. Let's go to Serpris. So open that one. So, and that's also a bit, it's really subtle because I also tried it a bit here. You can see it. There's this not horizontal, vertical, but this diagonal line. And yeah, this drawing looks also really great. I also like this flat style. So I'm always trying to work in this 3D-ish Disney style, but you don't have to, of course. But even with this style, you can watch out for these perfect circles. So maybe you can use a bit more shapes like this. And you can choose to create a character with really these kind of hands and style. So that can be a style. I always try to play around a bit more with shapes like this to create more dynamic poses. So here, these complex versus simple sides and contrast between shapes. So that's really something you need to decide. So maybe I would do this because here this feels a bit too same. So you could do it, but then I would do it maybe like this here. So you have a bit of this. And then the body is here. So I would even, if I would draw this character, I would think of how is the body behind what we don't see. So think of the construction of this body here. So is he standing like this? How is the body behind her? How's her anatomy behind the clothing? How's her arm? How's she standing? And then I would draw on top of that. You can draw on the big the parts. Maybe make this and think of how is this head on top of her head. But yeah, great work. And watch out for these points so that you have this finger, this tangent is here exactly at this point. So maybe the same here. It's not really, but here, for example, here these lines are touching each other. So maybe put this bell in front of the hand or make it loose. That can really, so try to watch out for that. And also think of this claws of this thing. Think of how it's going around the shape. So if we have this cylinder here, how are these, even if you have this flat style, how is it going around? How is that walled? How does it work? Maybe also here with these shapes, maybe you can, so here it feels, so here you can feel, I hope it's clear. Here you have this gravity. The gravity, the same with the clothing. So gravity goes really straight down. So like this, unless it's moving. If a hand is moving, so here, maybe someone is punching someone, then you have this. But still the gravity is pulling it down, but we're also, because of the arm is going that way, look, if you're hitting something, then you see your clothing also going this space here. So then you get this movement. But if your hand is standing still, it's going straight down, and your clothing is pulled down by the gravity. Also think of how these things are, these folds are going around the shapes. Also here with this, think of how this is going around the shapes. So I'm always drawing through the shapes. So if I have an arm here, I'm always drawing through the shapes. So let's see. Let's look at Logi. Really Nice character. Awesome work. And I think it's really cool that you have this overlap on this head here. But it feels a bit too close to the edge of that head. So maybe I would make it a bit more like this here. So you don't have those nasty tangents. But I really like this feeling. So he's really scared. Maybe this is his other eye of the crow or something. Maybe we can make her look a bit more evil, like she's laughing at him. Give this maybe a bit more space. Let's see this head. Maybe we can play around with the shape of the head a bit more. Yeah, I think this looks a bit better because then here we have this. I don't know. I'm trying to find some flow always in my drawing. So I try to think of how all these lines go. And you're already doing that. This feels a bit too such, and also here this feels like an bracelet something. So maybe I would do it like this here, and I would maybe make this a bit here and this here. So there's this, so you don't have these parallel lines, but then you have a bit of this shape there. I really like this is how she's holding this hand, this thing here. So that works really well. Great job. And then here, maybe you can make some bubbles a bit bigger so you have more contrast in those shapes. But it's really small thing. Maybe you can make, yeah, this looks nice. Maybe you can make this some parts a bit thicker or something. I don't know. But maybe that's also my style. So I almost don't use really thin styles. And maybe you can think of how this character is standing on the ground. You're adding maybe a bit more perspective. It's really subtle. Adding a bit more perspective on the ground. Again, it feels a bit too here, a bit too vertical. So maybe you can push this. Maybe you can make this shape a bit bigger. This one a bit more behind. So you have this feeling. Maybe here you have this feet there. We see a bit of that feet there. I don't know exactly. But that you have a bit more of 3D shapes there. Also, this feels a bit too parallel. And maybe you can play around a bit with that. Think of how this is constructed. Maybe here putting this shape here and then here. But yeah, great work. I really like the design of the head, and the crow also looks really nice. Think of how these shapes going around this stick. Great work. So was there, and there's one more from Icky Studio. And place that one here. And I often say go for 3/4 perspective, but that's not always necessary. But if I would draw this something like this, it's always important to draw through your shapes so that you're really drawing around like this here. And here's perspective super important. So maybe I would try to, and I think you already did a great job. I like this lighting you did, that you have this lighting of the character from under the face that helps with this story. So here, maybe push that even more. So here, watch out for that it looks symmetrical. So maybe I would change the head a bit more so that this part looks a bit different than this part. Then maybe make this pushing this shape here. Maybe using that hair also a bit like this, that you have some that's moving up. Maybe have this hand here, And then maybe you can stretch this hand here. And that you have this. So it's also, this arm is different than this arm. Maybe you can bend this arm like this, like you did. And this one is stretched. This one is here. But think of here, this arm is also coming to the viewer. You want to have this, you don't want this, because that's parallel and boring, but you want to have this feeling that this hand is coming to you. So you have this 3D-ish effect. Maybe this is a bit too much, but I hope you get the point across. So that this hand feels really close, so you get this 3D effect that you have in cinema. So I really like that you have this. Maybe you can use this perspective here, that you're also using this ground here, and that you're using these eyes here, maybe putting something back here. Maybe here, maybe putting this goo on this side. So something like this here. Maybe you can also make this stick also a bit with foreshortening. It's called foreshortening. So that is when something appears to be coming to us, of going away from us. But great work, Iki. And it was awesome seeing all these draw this in your styles. I think everyone did an awesome job. And if you want to find out more about, if you want more feedback on your work, you can join my Patreon. And there I give weekly video feedback for just $5 a month. I try to keep it cheap and a simple way of people supporting me and making more tutorials. So my Patreon, patreon.com/Mitch Leeuwe, or see the link in the description of this video. And there you can get weekly lesson and weekly video feedback, and you can ask me questions there. Or check out my ebooks with video tutorials on gumroad.com/Mitch Leeuwe. So thanks everyone, and I hope to see you in the next YouTube video or on Patreon or Instagram, wherever. So if you want to see more YouTube videos, you can subscribe and leave a comment if you have any questions. And that's it. So thanks everyone. Bye-bye.